Greetings and salutations, guys. Eric here with my review of MAXXXINE, the third installment in the X film series that began in 2022 from Ty West. A really fun sort of surprise trilogy that we got so rapid fire because X came out. It turned out, hey, guess what? They'd made a secret prequel, Pearl, that opened up the same year. And now just a couple years later, we've got MAXXXINE here to kind of wrap up this trilogy. Maybe not the entire series, since Ty West has said that there is the possibility for more down the line. But for now, this is the conclusion. I'm a huge fan of this series. I love X. I love Pearl. I love everything about how they were done. I love Mia Goth playing these lead roles, these two lead roles of both MAXXXINE and Pearl. And I am very happy with this third installment. This one brings the story to 1985 and what has become quite a multi-generational story. Don't forget, Pearl was 1918, X was 1979, so we are really going all over the place with this series. But now we're in 1985, and now MAXXXINE is working in Hollywood. She is still a porn actress, and she's got a modicum of fame, but it's certainly not the level of fame that we know MAXXXINE Minx really wants. She wants bigger things, and so she's trying to become a legit actress, and she is auditioning for a horror movie that is shooting and gets that role, and things are looking good for her, but at the same time, someone is stalking her. Someone is out to get her and is after people around her. This is all set in Los Angeles against the backdrop of the Night Stalker, which is a very real serial killer. Actually, remember this, very early memories of mine are being warned to watch out for the Night Stalker and be careful. And so this is happening, this backdrop, while someone is after her. And it's all going to kind of collide together. Who's after her, why they're after her, and what she needs to do and what she can do as far as her life and the career and all of her aspirations are going to come together here. Ty West has really done something cool with this series because each movie is so distinct and different. X was a grimy 1970s style horror movie, and then we've got Pearl, and it's this technicolor, vibrant, just visually pops, filled with color film, and how different it felt and how different the technique of it all felt. And this has happened again with MAXXXINE. 1985 in Hollywood, it really embraces sort of this exploitation, a little bit more of a like thriller feel going on here. Still very much a horror movie, but it is also sort of that era. It's very funny. The night before I saw this movie, I happened to rewatch Angel from 1984. And there's a lot of similarities there, but that's not the only movie. But there's Angel and other films are frames of reference here as far as like the streets of Hollywood and sex workers and a serial killer. And there's a cop element in the film here. Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan play a couple cops that are sort of on this case and keep questioning MAXXXINE. And that's really the influence here. And it's really cool to once again see how Ty West can shift everything and make it feel so different. I wonder if some people won't quite click with this one because I think it helped with Pearl that it was set so far in the past and that you could really understand the level that movie was operating at with its visuals and with the music and how it was sort of being almost like operatic. This one also has a little bit of a purposeful, slight little cheesy vibe to it, but it's more about that sort of like hard-nosed detective thing and some of the things that happen that are a little heightened. And I think some people are totally going to vibe with that and love it, but some people might not quite get into that or even get what exactly is the purpose of that and why it's happening like that and why it feels a little bit, over the top at points. I'm not going to give any spoilers for this movie, but like by the time it gets to the reveal of, what's really happening and who's really behind it, it goes big in a way that is, kind of outrageous, but I think really works within the context of this movie and how it's operating. And, again, I have to praise Mia Goth, who has been this amazing presence throughout all three films. She's given fantastic performance in every movie. I will say, inevitably you can't help but be like, hey, let's rank them now. There's 3 movies. What's your ranking? And I will say Pearl remains my favorite. I don't actually know between MAXXXINE and X. I have to think about that one. I think Pearl remains my favorite for a few reasons, but one is also that the character of Pearl in that movie and what Mia Goth is even being asked to do is a little more complex. because Pearl is this damaged person who's completely unraveling, and she has this huge, amazing monologue that Mia Goth does. MAXXXINE, doesn't have that level of emotional drive or, a psychological drive. She's got a lot going on, but not to that level that Pearl does. So I think that makes Pearl stand on its own. But what this movie is doing, what it's asking of her, I think is still great. Look, MAXXXINE has been changed by the events of X. And it's funny because there's a little bit of having your cake and eating it too here. Because like early in the movie when MAXXXINE is auditioning, there's a very funny moment where the script says about how the character she's reading for speaks
through her trauma.
This is a very obvious nod to something Ty West is going to be hyper aware of because he's a horror movie fan, which is the past few years has become a bit of a cliche to have a horror movie hero who is defined by trauma and be like, this movie's a metaphor for overcoming trauma. Halloween 2018 was like sort of the prime example of that, and I think it totally worked for that movie, but then it kind of became this cliche to say, oh, this character is trying to overcome trauma. At the same time, they want to acknowledge that, but MAXXXINE is defined by trauma to some extent. I mean, how can she not after what she went through in X? So yes, she is still haunted by the events of that movie, and it has changed her and toughened her up, and she carries a gun, and she's much more proactive when something dangerous is happening around her, but it hasn't changed who she is at her core, which is she wants to be a star. That is her drive. That is still what she sees as her goal and what she deserves and what she should be. And I think, I think the movie does a good job of balancing those aspects, that showing that she has changed, why she has changed, and how, encountering two psychotic elderly serial killers has, affected her, but she still is who she is. And there is a lot of fun sort of twisted moments in this movie. It is very visceral, very graphic. There are some moments that will have you simultaneously wincing and cheering because of some graphic things that happen, but the context within how they happen, it is, wow, some things happen to some body parts that are pretty insane. And yet I've now seen this movie twice, and both times the audience was applauding those moments because it's so audacious and in some levels also very satisfying, even as you're cringing. Because we're horror movie fans and we're getting some fun stuff here on that level. Supporting cast is really fun and very talented, and you've got people like Elizabeth Debicki playing the director of the film. The smaller role for Lily Collins as the sort of star of the previous movie in the franchise that now MAXXXINE is coming into. And a couple great roles from two old pros here, which is Giancarlo Esposito playing MAXXXINE's agent, who is, it's kind of a fun way for Esposito to play against type, but also with a nod to the characters that we are familiar with him. He's a wheeler dealer. He's sort of this slick 1980s Hollywood agent. And there's some very funny visuals of what he looks like on that level. But at the same time, he will do anything for his clients. He will do anything for MAXXXINE. And we see some great examples of that. And then Kevin Bacon having a ball playing this sort of lecherous, just creepy private detective that is working for someone who wants MAXXXINE followed, and he's got this Louisiana drawl, and he is just a slimy character that Kevin Bacon is having a great time with. This movie is very much immersed in the studios of the time. It does make you think of Scream 3 a lot because it's the third movie in a horror trilogy that is set in Hollywood about the making of a horror movie. Now, Scream, of course, was super meta from the start and a huge way, start to finish. The X series is not that at all, but there's a little bit of it. I think it's always been a little self-aware. You think back on the first movie when Jenna Ortega's character Lorraine brings up Psycho as an example of a movie that, can change halfway through. And that continues here clearly with them making a movie that's going to be part of it. It never gets super meta or winky, but there are these little moments like the trauma line, like some others where they can have some fun with the fact that they are making a movie. They're not making a movie about MAXXXINE or Pearl. It's a completely different horror scenario, but at the same time, it's going to have these echoes for MAXXXINE as a character, and it's going to have some echoes for us. The fact that they shoot some of this on the Universal backlot, and you see the Psycho house and the Bates Motel is really cool and really fun. And the recreation of Hollywood Boulevard in the 1980s is really impressive. It is amazing to see this series level up in this way, because X and Pearl were so small scale. I mean, they were filmed at the height of COVID, and they shot them in New Zealand for COVID safety reasons, and they were all set at pretty much one location with super small casts. This movie has all these extras and a much bigger cast and some bigger movie stars, and it is shot in Hollywood, and they recreate the 1980s in a really impressive way. It is just kind of cool to see how they really expand the world of X in this movie. Even has the entire series is so impressive because, like I said, it covers decades. It has its own mythology at this point, and there is a lot to sort of see there, and there's a lot of references and Easter eggs, and I'm glad I saw it a second time because I've already spotted things I missed the first time that are some nice callbacks. There was one notable element of this movie that I did have an issue with. It's a specific tie to the end of X. Even though we're dealing with a very heightened reality here in some respects, there's something that they do where they call back to the end of X that I don't think really makes sense as far as what we saw happen at the end of the film and the information being presented to both the audience and to MAXXXINE here. It just feels like we are missing something based on what we saw play out in that movie and the information characters should already know. Overall, though, I was incredibly happy with MAXXXINE. I think this is a blast. If you like the first two movies, I think this is a really great capper to the series. I don't think it's the peak of the series. I think that still remains Pearl, but I think this is such an accomplishment as far as a horror franchise, and the fact that we just kind of got it not out of nowhere because, you know, we knew X was coming, but the fact that, man, they got to spring this prequel on us and now so quickly make this third movie happen. It's just it's such a rare thing the way this all came together so rapidly, and I really love it. And I do hope there's more down the line. I think they can take a rest now that they've told their trilogy story. There's other places to go too that I think would be interesting to explore. But for now, we have a really cool trilogy. And that's rare, you know, that all three of these movies deliver. They all feel unique and different and interesting in their own ways. And what Ty West has created here, working hand in hand with Mia Goth through these three movies, is really something to be applauded. So anyway, those are my very pleased reactions to MAXXXINE, which is coming out on July 3rd. There's no better way to celebrate America than with MAXXXINE. She'd agree. I agree. So check it out. And I hope you enjoy. Anyway, if you could like and subscribe, I'd also enjoy that. But not as much as enjoying watching MAXXXINE. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. I'll be back with more reviews. Take care.